Welcome to a quiet corner of the night, where the world softens, the air hums low, and every breath feels a little slower. Tonight, let's wander together, not quickly, not urgently, but softly, like moonlight gliding over sleeping fields. Because somewhere, in the great ocean above us, a little star has just begun a very slow and very special journey. Have you ever wondered why some shooting stars move so slowly across the sky, as if they have nowhere to go, and all the time in the universe? Tonight we'll follow one and discover what a slow journey can truly mean. The night unfolds slowly, like the turning of a grand celestial page. Above, the sky stretches endlessly, an ocean without waves, without boundaries, a sea made of silence and light. Each star drifts within it like a pearl, glowing softly in the deep velvet expanse. There are no tides here, no storms, only the hush of cosmic stillness. The sky does not rush, and nothing within it competes for space. Every point of light has its own rhythm, its own small pulse in the breathing fabric of the universe. It is a world beyond noise and motion, a sanctuary where time seems to dissolve, where every shimmer holds a story waiting to be told. The stars whisper softly to one another, their glimmers echoing across unimaginable distances. Some shine fiercely, burning with youth and fire, while others barely flicker, tired from centuries of existence. Together, they form constellations, patterns ancient eyes once traced, stories that still linger in the dark. The great bear, the hunter, the swan, all suspended across the firmament, unchanged and unhurried. Their shapes rest like memories painted upon the heavens, glowing faintly in the cool breath of eternity. When the world below falls asleep, the night sky awakens in its full majesty. Mountains seem smaller beneath its depth, oceans seem quieter, and the air itself feels thinner, as if the earth is leaning closer to listen. The stars shimmer not as lights, but as whispers, soft reminders that there is more beyond sight, more beyond thought. The air hums with their quiet presence, and those who gaze upward can almost feel the stillness flow into them, like calm waves washing over the restless shores of the mind. Far from the noise of human life, the stars exist without desire or worry. They do not hurry to rise or fade. They are simply there, steadfast, patient, ancient. The Milky Way stretches across like a silver river, its current slow and infinite, carrying with it the stories of countless ages. Dust and gas swirl gently, illuminated by the light of 1,000,000 burning suns. It is a symphony of slowness, an eternal rhythm that speaks of patience, endurance, and quiet wonder. In this vastness, one can imagine the stars as droplets in an ocean, drifting, shimmering, merging, and dissolving. Their light travels for millions of years before touching Earth, meaning that the glow we see tonight might have left its source before humankind even learned to speak. Yet the sky does not reveal this distance. To the eye, every star feels close, like a friend watching gently from afar. That illusion of closeness gives comfort. It wraps the night in intimacy, making the infinite feel almost familiar. As the hours pass, the color of the heavens deepens. Midnight brings a darkness so pure that even shadows seem to rest. The world below breathes slower, mirroring the rhythm of the stars. A quiet breeze moves through the trees, and for a brief moment, the earth and sky seem connected, two parts of the same silent dream. The constellations shimmer softly, their reflections barely touching the rippling lakes and winding rivers below. It is as if the world has become a mirror, reflecting the calm eternity above. Somewhere in that still expanse, a small star lingers at the edge of visibility. It watches the others gleam with confidence, each following its ancient path across the heavens. The little star feels the pull of the cosmic tide, gentle yet persistent, like a soft invitation to move. It wonders if this ocean of light has room for change, for something different. Perhaps a journey. Around it, the night remains patient. The universe waits without urgency, without command. It allows every spark of light to find its own moment, its own meaning. The night sky, infinite and calm, becomes both a home and a mystery. Its silence is not empty but full of echoes, dreams, and the breath of creation itself. The stars drift like thoughts in the vast mind of the cosmos, each one alive, each one waiting to be seen. And somewhere in this grand, starlit ocean, a story begins, quiet, fragile, and slow, just like the gentle motion of the stars themselves. Amid the endless sea of light, where stars glitter like scattered jewels upon dark velvet, there exists one small star, quiet, faint, and gentle in its glow. It hangs low in the sky, a soft glimmer barely noticed among the brilliance that surrounds it. The great constellations shine with proud clarity, their light sharp and bold, while nearby clusters pulse with vibrant energy. Yet this little star flickers timidly, as though uncertain of its place in the grand design of the heavens. It looks upon the vastness around it and feels something small stir within. A thought, a wondering, perhaps even a quiet ache. It was not always like this. Once long ago, the star burned with the same confidence as the others. It sparkled joyfully in the cool nights, dancing among its celestial neighbors, content simply to exist. But as time passed, its light dimmed. The reasons were many. Perhaps the natural rhythm of aging stars, perhaps the gentle exhaustion that comes from shining for countless years. Still, as its light softened, the world below began to look past it. Few eyes turned toward its faint shimmer. The star began to notice. In the grand tapestry of the cosmos, where brightness often means beauty, it wondered if its soft light still mattered. Around it, mighty stars blazed with fierce brilliance. Their rays reached far, touching planets, reflecting off icy moons, guiding travelers through the vast darkness. They were the storytellers of the sky, the ones given names, drawn into constellations, sung of in ancient myths. The small star admired them, but also felt a quiet distance, a separation too wide to bridge. Their conversations sparkled through the void, full of laughter and old light, while the small one listened silently. Afraid to interrupt, it shimmered faintly like a sigh in the night, wondering if anyone would notice, if it ever stopped glowing at all. Sometimes, the little star tried to shine brighter. It gathered what energy it could, stretching the limits of its light, hoping to catch the eye of a wandering comet or a passing moon. For brief moments it succeeded. It felt itself glow stronger, warmer, fuller. But the effort always left it weary, its radiance fading again into softness. And as the brilliance waned, the star realized that pretending to be something greater only made its own light feel smaller. In the stillness of the universe, it began to sense that its gentle glow, though faint, carried something the brighter stars did not. A kind of peace, a quiet tenderness that did not need to dazzle to exist. Yet doubt has a way of finding even the most tranquil hearts. On some nights, when the darkness between the galaxies felt heavier, the star would gaze upon the Milky Way, a river of brilliance stretching endlessly across the cosmos, and feel lost within its glow. It wondered why it had been made so dim, so easily overlooked. Was it a mistake of the universe, a forgotten spark? Or perhaps it had once been bright, but had somehow failed to keep its fire alive. These thoughts drifted through it like passing shadows, and those stars do not cry. The little one's light seemed to tremble. But even in that trembling, there was beauty. Its dim light was soft enough to be gentle on the eyes of dreamers. Down on earth, where mountains sleep beneath the veil of night. A lone traveler once looked up and saw it. To that traveler, it was not dim nor weak. It was steady, calm, a quiet companion in the cold night air. The traveler made a wish upon it, unaware that the little star felt unseen by the rest. For a moment, across the immeasurable distance, the wish touched the star's heart, and its glow deepened, if only slightly. The universe is vast, and not every light must burn fiercely to be meaningful. Yet the small star did not know this yet. It continued to watch the grand ones above and around, their light reflecting endlessly in the cosmic silence. It thought of what it might be missing, what it might never become. Its shimmer pulsed slowly, like the heartbeat of something alive yet uncertain of its worth. Surrounded by brilliance, it carried the quiet sorrow of being unnoticed, and in that gentle ache, something began to awaken. A longing not to be brighter, but to understand what its light was truly for. In the stillness of endless night, the small star floated, its soft light trembling like a thought unsure of itself. Around it, galaxies spiraled with purpose. Comets streaked through the heavens with clear direction, and distant planets turned in perfect rhythm. Everything seemed to know its place. Everything seemed to belong to a greater harmony. But the small star could not shake a quiet feeling that lingered deep within. A longing, faint but persistent, to understand why it shone at all. It had always been told that stars were born to illuminate the darkness, that their duty was simple, to shine, to exist, to glow until their time was done. But the small star could not find peace in that idea. To merely shine without meaning felt hollow. It wanted to know if its light mattered. It wanted to understand whether its faint glow reached anyone, touched anything, or if it simply drifted through eternity unseen. The question pulsed inside it like a slow rhythm. Why am I here? What is my light for? Each night, as the great constellations spoke in whispers of their histories and roles, the small star listened quietly. Orion spoke proudly of guiding travelers. Polaris, the North Star, spoke of direction and loyalty, of being a beacon for those who wander. The Pleiades shimmered together in laughter, their unity forming songs that crossed the sky. Every star seemed to have a purpose, a role woven into the grand design of the cosmos. And the little one, faint and solitary, felt the ache of uncertainty grow deeper with each passing age. Sometimes it would gaze toward the Milky Way, that luminous river of light flowing endlessly through space. It would watch the billions of suns, that formed its glow and wonder if its tiny light, even added to that brilliance, could one small spark in an ocean of fire truly make a difference. The thought both comforted and saddened it. Perhaps it was not meant to be seen, not meant to stand out. Perhaps its purpose was something quieter, something hidden beneath the surface of understanding. The universe often speaks in silence, and in that silence, the star began to listen differently. It noticed how its gentle glow touched nearby dust clouds, how faint reflections rippled across invisible gas, painting them in soft, golden hues. Tiny particles shimmered because of it, like glitter scattered in the dark. The star wondered if that was enough, if maybe, without realizing it, it was already fulfilling a purpose simply by existing as it was. Yet even as that hope warmed it, the longing did not fade. There was a deeper truth it still yearned to discover, something beyond reflection or light. As Yunes drifted by, the small star often gazed toward the blue planet far below, Earth. It watched how oceans caught the moonlight, how clouds rolled gently over mountains, how fires flickered in the night. Sometimes, faint trails of smoke rose from small villages, and tiny lights blinked in answer to the sky. The star wondered if those lights were like it, trying to shine in a world that rarely looked up. It imagined what it might be like to be seen by eyes filled with wonder, to have its light make someone dream, even for a moment. The longing grew with every rotation of the heavens. It was not envy nor sadness, but something more profound, a desire to connect. The small star did not wish to outshine the others or to burn brighter. It only wished to understand the meaning behind its glow. Perhaps light was not meant merely to be seen, but to reach something, to bridge the silence between the heavens and the hearts below. One night, as the galaxy hummed softly in its eternal rhythm, a meteor shower passed nearby. The small star watched the fiery trails with awe. They burned bright and fast, leaving streaks of silver before fading into nothing. For a moment, the star thought perhaps that was what purpose looked like. To burn so intensely that the world could not ignore you, even if only for a heartbeat. But as the sky quieted again, and the silence returned, it felt the same quiet truth settle within. That meaning, like starlight, was not always about how bright one burned, but about why one continued to shine at all. The longing remained, steady, deep, and almost sacred. It was not a weakness, but a question that kept the star alive. It wanted to know what it was meant to illuminate, what dreams it was meant to awaken, what part of the universe its faint light was meant to touch. And so it continued to glow, quietly, patiently, hoping that someday the vast silence of the cosmos would whisper an answer back. A long silence passed before the star understood what the longing inside it truly meant. It had spent countless nights suspended in the same corner of the sky, watching the slow dance of the universe unfold. The constellations drifted gently through their endless patterns, and the moon continued its patient journey across the heavens. Yet something deep within the small star began to stir. A soft pull, like a whisper calling from beyond its familiar place. The ache that had once been quiet curiosity began to feel like a gentle urging, a feeling that there was something waiting, something the star could only discover if it moved. At first, the idea frightened it. Stars were not meant to wander freely. They had places, positions, and purposes fixed in the grand geometry of the cosmos. The thought of leaving its place seemed impossible, even forbidden, but the feeling did not fade. Each night, as the galaxies shimmered in their infinite grace, the pull grew stronger, like a thread of invisible light tugging softly at its heart. The small star could no longer ignore it. It began to wonder if perhaps, just perhaps, its purpose was not to remain still, but to follow that call, to see where its light might lead. It looked around one final time. The neighboring stars shone quietly, unaware of the silent struggle unfolding beside them. Orion's belt glimmered proudly, unmoved by the faint star's hesitation. The great constellations seemed eternal, their positions fixed and their patterns unchanging. Yet in that stillness, the little star felt something different. The courage that often comes from being small, the freedom to choose even when the world seems immovable. And so, it whispered a farewell to the space that had cradled it for so long, a quiet promise that it would not forget the silence it once called home. The moment it decided to leave was not sudden or dramatic. It happened slowly, like the soft blooming of dawn. A gentle tremor of light pulsed from within, a warmth that spread through its glowing body, quiet but certain. The universe around seemed to notice. The airless void shimmered faintly, as though the fabric of space itself acknowledged the decision. A current of unseen energy began to move through the star, lifting it ever so slightly from its resting place. For the first time in its existence, it felt motion, real deliberate motion, and it was both exhilarating and terrifying. The nearby stars noticed the faint shift. Some wondered in silence. A few whispered faintly across the distances between them, their light flickering in quiet curiosity. "Where are you going?" one asked. The small star did not have an answer. It only knew that staying had begun to feel like fading. It wanted to understand what lay beyond the comfort of stillness, to see if there was something more than the endless repetition of night. It wanted to know what light could become when it dared to move. The pull became stronger, wrapping the star in invisible waves of gravity and starlight. Slowly, it began to drift downward, leaving behind the familiar constellations that had been its companions for ages. The movement was not fast, not fiery. It was graceful and deliberate, like a feather falling through water. Every inch it moved, it felt the universe grow larger around it. The darkness deepened, the silence thickened, and the faint hum of the cosmos filled its being. It was as though the star was stepping into a story much older than itself, guided by forces it could not see but somehow trusted completely. There was no fear now, only surrender. The star realized that leaving did not mean being lost. It meant beginning. The vastness below beckoned with quiet promise. Clouds of dust shimmered beneath like mist, and distant worlds turned slowly, their oceans and mountains hidden under veils of light. The stars' glow reflected faintly off the swirling nebulae, scattering fragments of gold into the dark. For a brief moment, it felt as if it were painting the sky anew, each flicker of its descent leaving traces of beauty behind. Time began to lose its meaning. Days, centuries, or perhaps entire aeons passed as the star drifted downward through the quiet infinity. Its motion remained calm and unhurried. Every pulse of its light echoed softly through the void, like the rhythm of a dream. The universe, vast and watching, said nothing, yet its silence felt kind, almost protective. The small star had taken its first step toward something unknown, something that existed beyond its understanding. And as it continued to move through the deep fabric of space, it carried with it a quiet faith that the decision to leave was not an ending, but the beginning of finding what it had always been searching for. In the cold stillness of space, the small star floated between hesitation and destiny. It had already made the choice to leave. Yet choices are easy when they live only in thought. To act upon them, to turn them into motion, that is where courage is born. For ages, the star had lingered in its place, glowing faintly, afraid of what might happen if it dared to move. The sky was vast and full of mysteries, and leaving its spot meant stepping into the unknown, into a silence deeper than any it had ever known. But somewhere deep within its glowing heart, a warmth began to rise. It was not the heat of its fire, but the quiet strength of determination. It was courage unfolding slowly, gently, as if the universe itself was breathing it into the star's being. Courage, the star realized, was not loud. It did not roar like a burning sun or blaze like a comet's tail. It was soft and steady, like the slow rhythm of light pulsing through darkness. It came not from certainty, but from trust. Trust in the unseen path, in the invisible pull guiding it downward. The small star had always believed that to be brave meant to burn brighter, to be noticed. But now it understood that true courage was something else entirely. It was the willingness to move, even when no one could see you, to shine, even when you did not know where your light would fall. The universe seemed to pause as the star gathered its will. Around it, the vast constellations stood silent, their familiar shapes watching but saying nothing. The great nebulae shimmered softly, their colors shifting like slow waves of breath. In that sacred stillness, the small star felt something awaken, the quiet realization that it was not alone in its fear. Every star, every planet, every drifting fragment of dust had once faced a moment of movement, a beginning. The cosmos was made not of certainty, but of countless acts of courage hidden in the folds of time. The star's light began to change. It deepened, no longer flickering timidly, but glowing from within, steady and calm. Its edges softened, and its warmth spread outward like a gentle whisper. Slowly, it loosened its hold on the patch of sky that had been its home since the dawn of its being. The energy that once kept it suspended now began to release, allowing it to move, not in a fall of fire, but in a descent as graceful as moonlight. It felt itself drifting downward, toward the unknown expanse below, the beginning of its slow journey. The first movement was delicate, almost imperceptible. It was as if the universe held its breath, afraid to disturb the courage being born in that moment. The star felt a slight pull, a gravity that seemed to hum with purpose. Its descent was not a fall of fear, but a surrender to destiny. It moved not with haste, but with the serenity of something ancient and wise. The cosmos stretched around it endlessly, stars blinking softly like silent witnesses to its bravery. Every moment of its descent brought new sensations. The airless void shimmered with invisible waves of energy, caressing its surface like unseen hands. Light from distant galaxies reflected off its golden hue, wrapping it in a cocoon of warmth. It passed by drifting clouds of dust that glowed faintly in its presence, each one lighting up as if in quiet reverence. The star felt no loneliness here. Instead, it felt accompanied by everything, by the hum of creation itself. The journey downward was slow, almost meditative. There was no rush, no urgency. The small star had no need to race across the heavens like the meteors that burned and vanished in seconds. It wanted to feel every heartbeat of its motion, to understand the meaning behind every shimmer it left behind. Its courage was not in how fast it could fall, but in how fully it could surrender to the moment, trusting that even a slow journey could carry it where it was meant to go. As it drifted farther from its place in the sky, the world below began to grow clearer. The blue planet with its oceans and clouds shimmered faintly in the distance. The star could see its own reflection ripple in those distant waters, and for the first time, it understood that courage was not just the act of leaving, but also the act of continuing, of glowing softly in the face of uncertainty, of finding peace in the motion between what was known and what awaited. The universe did not speak, but its silence was full of approval. The small star glided onward, its light calm and unwavering, each pulse of its glow a quiet heartbeat of bravery. It was no longer afraid of the dark, for it had become part of it. A small spark moving through the vast ocean of night, guided by faith alone. And as it continued its descent, every flicker of its light carried a message that sometimes the slowest journeys are the most profound, and that true courage shines brightest, not in speed or brilliance, but in gentle persistence. As the small star drifted slowly from its ancient place in the sky, it felt the vast stillness of the universe embrace it like a quiet song. The silence was not empty. It was full of presence, full of voices too deep and soft for ordinary hearing. The cosmos had its own language, one not made of words, but of rhythm, of vibration, of the endless pulse that connected every drifting particle of light. Within that silence, the small star began to sense something, a whisper, tender and distant at first, like a memory rising from the deep. It was the voice of the universe itself, speaking in a tone that sounded less like sound and more like feeling. "Do not rush," the whisper seemed to say. "There is no need to hurry through the endless night." The words, if they could be called that, brushed against the star's light, like a gentle wind. The star paused, letting the meaning seep into its being. For so long, it had believed that movement must be swift, that falling meant blazing, that purpose came from speed. But the whisper was patient, timeless, carrying the wisdom of all things that have ever been born and ever will be. It told the star that slowness was not weakness. That time itself was not an obstacle, but a companion. As it drifted onward, the small star began to listen more deeply. The whisper was everywhere. In the cold stretch of interstellar dust, in the faint hum of gravity pulling it forward, in the golden shimmer that wrapped around it like a comforting hand. Every journey, the universe murmured, has its own pace. You are not behind. You are not late. You are simply unfolding. The star let those vibrations echo through its core, feeling the truth settle in places where fear once lived. The universe had seen countless stars before, some that burst with blinding light, others that faded quietly into the endless black. It knew that every light had a story, and none of those stories were the same. The whisper carried that understanding like a lullaby for wandering stars. It told the small one that there was beauty in stillness. That meaning was not found in arrival, but in the journey itself. Take your time. The voice breathed again, soft as starlight. For even light must learn how to rest between its shining. The small star continued to descend, slower now, not from hesitation, but from peace. The whisper surrounded it, weaving through its glow like invisible threads of silver. Every pulse of its light became calmer, deeper. The universe was not urging it forward or pulling it back. It was simply being with it, traveling alongside, patient as eternity itself. The star realized that it was not alone in its movement. It was part of a grand rhythm, a cosmic dance that required no hurry, no urgency. Everything in creation was in motion, but nothing ever truly rushed. Even galaxies took billions of years to turn once, and yet they never felt late. Sometimes the whisper deepened, echoing like the sound of 1,000 oceans breathing in unison. It spoke to the star's very essence. You were made from my dust, from my breath, from my silence. You are not apart from me, you are part of me. Wherever you go, I am with you. Do not chase your purpose. Let it come to you slowly, like dawn rising over an unseen horizon. The star's glow quivered at these words, not with fear, but with a kind of understanding it had never known. It realized that time was not its enemy. Time was its teacher. The journey became softer, like floating through a dream that never needed to end. Each moment stretched into eternity, and the star could feel the pulse of the universe move through it, the heartbeat of creation itself. The whisper no longer came as separate sound, but as something woven into its very light. Every flicker of its glow carried that message now: patience, presence, peace. The star looked around at the endless night, the great expanse that once felt too large, too cold, and it no longer felt small within it. It was part of the stillness, part of the calm rhythm that made the galaxies turn and the comets soar. The whisper had given it permission to be exactly what it was, to travel slowly, to savor every breath of existence. It was no longer about reaching an end or proving its light. It was about feeling each moment of the journey, understanding that even motion could be a form of meditation. And so the small star drifted, surrounded by the quiet voice of the universe. Each wave of energy, each shimmer of cosmic dust, each heartbeat of silence carried the same sacred message: that the stars, like all things, are never truly in a race. The universe, in its infinite patience, encourages them all to take their time, to find their way, and to shine in their own rhythm. The whisper continued to hum through the stillness, timeless and eternal, guiding the star onward in peace. The small star floated through the boundless ocean of space, its motion slowed to a peaceful drift, guided by the soft whisper of the universe. At first, stillness felt strange, almost foreign. For so long, the star had been taught by the cosmos that shining meant moving, that purpose was found in constant burning, that light was a form of noise. Yet now, in the gentle quiet between galaxies, something new began to awaken deep within it. The star's outer brilliance softened, and its inner light began to bloom, slow, calm, and full of warmth. This was not the kind of light that rushed to illuminate. It was the kind that grew from peace. Inside its radiant core, the star began to feel its own pulse, a rhythm that had always been there, but drowned out by the rush of movement and the echo of purpose. The glow came not from fuel or flame, but from awareness, a deep understanding that being was enough. The universe did not demand it to shine brighter or faster. It only asked it to be present. And in that presence, something miraculous began to unfold. The star's light, once fierce and restless, turned softer, like the first light of dawn spilling gently across an untouched horizon. Each flicker of that inner glow felt alive, like a breath drawn in by the universe itself. The star realized that stillness was not the absence of life. It was the foundation of it. In stillness, it could feel every vibration of the cosmos, every delicate thread that connected one existence to another. Time itself seemed to slow around it, and yet within that slowness, the star could sense the depth of everything, the pulse of galaxies, the drifting of dust, the hum of gravity in perfect harmony. It was as though the universe had opened its arms and the star, at last, allowed itself to rest in them. The gentle glow began to spread beyond the star's surface. It reached outward in waves so subtle that even the nearest stardust could barely see it. Yet the energy was felt everywhere. It was a light that did not burn but embraced, did not blind but soothe. Other small fragments of dust and gas drifting nearby began to shimmer faintly, as if responding to the same rhythm. Stillness had become contagious, a quiet energy that needed no sound to communicate. The star realized that stillness was not a stopping of movement, but a way of aligning with the natural pace of existence. It was harmony, not pause. With each moment that passed, the star grew lighter, as though a great weight it never knew it carried was slowly dissolving. The pressure to become something, to move faster, to reach somewhere, it all melted away under the warmth of stillness. The light within it no longer needed to prove itself. It simply was. The more the star accepted this truth, the more radiant it became. Its glow deepened from the inside out, glowing not like fire, but like serenity itself made visible. The universe continued to whisper softly, encouraging this transformation. You see, it murmured through the silence, when you stop reaching, you begin to grow. When you stop chasing the horizon comes to you. The star listened, its heart of plasma now resonating like a steady drumbeat of understanding. Stillness was not emptiness. It was fullness. It was the state in which the soul of the universe could be heard most clearly. Around the star, the emptiness of space felt different now, not hollow but infinite. Every particle of light, every distant shimmer, seemed to breathe in sync with the small star's rhythm. The glow that had started deep within it became a beacon, though not one that shouted across space. It was a whispering light, a calm, inviting warmth that spoke to everything near it. The surrounding dust seemed to hum in response, like a quiet chorus rising in reverence to peace itself. And in that harmony, the star began to understand its true nature. It was not just a body of gas or a source of light. It was part of the living breath of creation. Its glow was not its own. It was shared with the whole. The universe pulsed through it, and it pulsed through the universe. The boundaries between self and sky blurred until they no longer existed. There was only one vast stillness, and within it, one continuous light. The more the star surrendered to this awareness, the gentler its light became, yet paradoxically, the more powerful it felt. Its radiance no longer demanded attention. It simply existed in peace, and that peace carried a beauty far greater than brilliance. Other distant stars, though unaware, began to drift into alignment with the same rhythm, as if the calm energy was a tide subtly shifting the fabric of the cosmos. Stillness had become the heartbeat of creation itself, and within that rhythm, the star's gentle glow continued to grow, filling the quiet space around it with a warmth that no words could ever describe. As the small star drifted deeper into the heart of the universe, an unseen current began to move around it, a vast and gentle force known as the cosmic winds. They were not winds as one would imagine on a planet. They had no sound, no gust, no air. They were silent streams of energy, invisible threads woven through the very fabric of space, guiding the wanderers of the cosmos from one unknown realm to another. The star could not see them, yet it felt their presence. They caressed its glowing surface, wrapping it in a tender embrace, lifting it softly as though the universe itself had chosen to cradle it in motion. The star had once believed that movement came only from will, from choice, from the fire that burned within. But now, as it surrendered to these silent winds, it realized that sometimes movement came from trust. The cosmic winds carried it not because it demanded to go, but because it allowed itself to be guided. This surrender brought with it a peace deeper than anything it had known. It was no longer pushing against the flow of existence. It was flowing with it. The universe, in return, responded with grace, gently steering the star along paths of unseen wonder. As it drifted, the star began to sense the vast expanse around it more clearly than ever before. The winds carried with them the whispers of ancient light, fragments of stories from stars long gone and galaxies still being born. Each current told a different tale. Some were warm and bright, filled with laughter of new suns bursting to life. Others were cool and faint, carrying the final sighs of dying worlds whose light was fading into memory. The star listened, and within those winds, it felt connected to all that had ever been and all that would ever be. There were moments when the cosmic winds changed direction suddenly, swirling in gentle spirals that made the stars' light shimmer like rippling water. It could feel the tug of gravitational fields from nearby clusters, the slow pull of nebulae filled with glowing dust. Each shift was delicate, as if the universe was painting invisible strokes of motion across its canvas. The star followed without resistance, moving wherever it was carried, trusting the unseen hands of fate to take it where it needed to go. Sometimes the winds would slow to a near halt, and the star would hover in an almost perfect stillness, suspended between galaxies. In those pauses, it could feel the hum of eternity, a deep, resonant vibration that echoed through its core. It was in these moments that the star realized something profound. Even when it appeared still, the universe was always moving. Every atom, every photon, every grain of cosmic dust was in motion, part of a grand choreography too vast for any one being to see. The star smiled within itself, its light pulsing faintly in rhythm with that eternal song. Other times, the winds would rise, not with violence but with purpose. They would sweep the star through glowing fields of cosmic dust, where clouds shimmered like rivers of silver and gold. The particles brushed against its light, scattering faint trails behind it that glittered like a dream being written across the darkness. The star left no sound, but its journey painted beauty in silence, a story told in sparkles and shadows. It began to understand that the cosmic winds were not random. They were the language of the universe, shaping destinies, sculpting galaxies, and weaving every wandering star into a single, living design. As it moved farther from its birthplace, the star's glow reflected faintly upon the drifting matter around it. The dust began to respond, forming faint ripples, gentle waves that shimmered softly in the dark. The star realized that it was no longer just being carried. It had become part of the motion itself. Its light guided the winds as much as the winds guided it. They were partners now, dancing through the infinite. This realization filled the star with a quiet joy, that every journey, no matter how vast, was a collaboration between self and cosmos. The cosmic winds continued to hum, carrying with them faint murmurs of energy, the echoes of quasars, the sighs of pulsars, the laughter of newborn light. Each wave of movement reminded the star that it was part of something immense and tender. There was no destination, no end, only the flow. And within that flow, the star discovered the serenity of being carried, the beauty of trusting the unknown. As it glided through the endless expanse, the star felt no urgency, no fear, no longing for what was left behind. The winds were now its lullaby, singing softly through the silent sea of space. Every shift of current, every change of direction was a new chapter in a story written by the universe itself. And as the star drifted onward through this boundless dream, it learned that to be carried by the cosmos was not to be lost. It was to belong completely to the rhythm of existence itself. The star floated for what felt like eternity through the soft current of the cosmic winds, its gentle glow swaying in harmony with the deep rhythm of the universe. There was no haste, no destination, only the eternal drift through the velvet dark. And then, one quiet moment, something began to shimmer in the infinite distance below. It was faint at first, a delicate glimmer that seemed to breathe beneath the layers of cosmic dust, like a whisper of light sleeping inside the shadows. The star slowed its descent, drawn by the unfamiliar radiance. Its glow pulsed softly, curious and calm, as the strange world beneath came slowly into view. It was not like the stars or the nebulae it had known. This light was softer, warmer, tinged with blues and silvers that curled around the edges of a vast, glowing sphere. As it moved closer, the outlines became clearer. There were clouds that swirled in slow motion, oceans that gleamed with starlight, and vast lands cloaked in deep hues of green and gold. The small star felt something new, something it had never experienced before, the sensation of life. It could sense the quiet hum of movement, not the motion of galaxies or gases, but something subtler, more fragile and deeply alive. The distant world seemed to breathe. Its atmosphere shimmered like a living veil, glowing faintly under the reflection of starlight. Winds moved through its skies, shaping patterns that looked almost like thoughts. The star felt itself pulled closer, not by gravity, but by wonder. This was not just another object drifting through space. It was a place of warmth, of balance, of delicate rhythm. For the first time in its long journey, the star felt as if it was witnessing a heartbeat outside itself, a rhythm that echoed faintly with its own. The oceans below sparkled as though answering the star's gaze. The waves shimmered with flecks of light that looked like reflections of distant stars, and the star could not tell if it was watching the sea or the sky mirrored upon it. Mountains rose and fell like quiet sighs, and rivers glowed faintly as they carved paths of silver through the sleeping continents. There were flashes of lightning in the far horizon, brief, beautiful dances of energy that illuminated the clouds from within. Each spark felt like a conversation between the heavens and the earth, a dialogue of light that had been taking place for ages. As the star watched, it began to feel something stirring within it, a faint ache, but not of loneliness this time. It was recognition. This world, though different from the vastness of space, held a reflection of something the star had always carried deep within: the desire to create, to nurture, to glow not for itself, but for the beauty it could bring to others. It saw how the sunlight kissed the oceans, how shadows played gently across the land, and how every flicker of light had purpose here. The world below was not just existing, it was living. It was a harmony of countless small miracles breathing together. The star drifted closer, feeling its own light blend with the glow of the planet's upper atmosphere. For a moment, its reflection shimmered across the clouds, a single spark among many, a wandering glow touching the face of a sleeping world. The star felt a warmth return to it, a gentle pulse that grew stronger the more it watched. Perhaps, it thought, this was the reason it had left its place in the heavens. To witness such a sight, to see light take new forms, to feel the universe expressing itself in ways beyond the endless night. The cosmic winds that carried the star began to slow, as if allowing it time to take in the vision before it. The world rotated beneath, unhurried, timeless, its rhythm matching the steady pulse of the star's own glow. The small star noticed how the edges of the planet glowed faintly with a soft blue halo. The thin, fragile skin that protected all life within. That fragility moved the star deeply. It was a reminder of how delicate existence could be, yet how fiercely it continued to burn even in the vast, cold emptiness of space. The star drifted above the clouds, bathing the upper sky in a pale light that shimmered gently across the horizon. It saw continents sleeping under a blanket of night, illuminated by faint fires and reflections of the moon. It saw storms swirl in graceful spirals, painting the air with motion. It watched auroras dance in ghostly greens and blues near the poles, waving like curtains of light born from the meeting of heaven and earth. Every detail seemed alive, purposeful, and sacred. The star realized that this world was a living story, one written not in words, but in breaths, movements, and light. It was not chaotic, but profoundly balanced, where even silence carried meaning. The star's heart of plasma glowed softly, feeling a kinship with the blue sphere below. though it came from the cold reaches of space. Something in this place felt familiar, as if the essence of stars had been woven into the soil, the seas, and the skies. Perhaps, in some forgotten way, they were connected, born from the same cosmic breath that began all creation. And as the small star continued to drift, its gaze fixed upon the living world beneath, it felt something within it deepen. A quiet sense of belonging, not to a place, but to the great and endless rhythm that united everything, from the silent void to the whispering winds of an unseen world. As the small star approached the glowing world beneath, the space around it began to change. The soft emptiness of the cosmos slowly gave way to texture. Layers of unseen air, drifting vapors, and shimmering ribbons of light that wrapped around the planet like delicate silk. The star could feel the shift. The invisible boundary that separated the silence of space from the breath of a living world. The cosmic winds that once carried it began to slow, bowing to the gentle pull of gravity. The star drifted forward, its glow trembling with both awe and hesitation as it crossed into the atmosphere of the waiting planet. The first touch was delicate, a whisper rather than a sound. The star entered a veil of gases so thin they were nearly invisible. Yet each one shimmered faintly in the reflection of its light. They brushed against its surface like soft fingers tracing its glow. The air carried a scentless hum, a vibration that was neither song nor silence, but something in between, the pulse of a living sphere. For the first time, the star felt resistance, the subtle pressure of air slowing its movement, the faint warmth of friction blooming gently around its luminous body. It had never known warmth like this before. In the cold reaches of the cosmos, temperature had no meaning. There was only energy, radiance, and motion. But here, as it descended deeper through the atmospheric layers, warmth became something alive. It wasn't harsh or consuming. It wrapped around the star like a cradle. The layers glowed softly as it passed through them, each one bending its light, scattering its glow into hues of orange, pink, and violet. The sky itself seemed to be painting the star's descent, turning its pure white brilliance into a slow cascade of colors that flowed across the heavens. The star drifted lower, and the air began to thicken. It could see the clouds forming far below, rolling and folding in slow motion. They weren't still. They danced in silence, moved by invisible forces that shaped them into waves, spirals, and threads. The star passed through the first thin clouds, and for a brief moment It was surrounded by mist. Droplets of vapor shimmered as they met its heat, glowing like millions of tiny jewels. The light bent and refracted through them, casting halos that rippled outward in gentle circles. The clouds whispered as they parted, their edges glowing golden where the stars' light touched them. Further below, the layers of atmosphere deepened into blues and silvers, a vast ocean of air that stretched endlessly in every direction. The pressure grew stronger, and with it, the sound of motion began to hum faintly around the star. Not noise as it was known in the universe, but the kind of sound one feels rather than hears, a low vibration that spoke the language of matter. The star could sense the rhythm of wind currents, the rise and fall of air, the breath of the planet itself. It felt as though the entire world was alive and aware, responding to its presence with silent recognition. The light of the star began to interact with the atmosphere in new ways. Its radiance scattered into the horizon, painting streaks of color that stretched across the sky. To anyone watching from the surface, it would appear as a slow, moving flame, gliding gracefully through the heavens. Yet from the star's own view, it felt like swimming through an ocean of light. The deeper it went, the more the air shimmered. Tiny crystals of moisture reflected its glow in every direction, turning the surrounding sky into a sea of luminescence. The star no longer felt alone. It was surrounded by 1,000 reflections of itself, each one a soft echo of its own being. Then came the clouds dense enough to resemble mountains of mist. They were not gray but radiant, their edges glowing gold, their shadows painted with pale lavender and silver. The star entered them slowly, and everything became quiet again. Inside the clouds there was no up or down, only drifting white illuminated by its gentle glow. Droplets of water gathered and fell, like liquid light returning to the world below. The star felt itself slow even more, moving not by force, but by grace, gliding as though guided by an unseen rhythm that the planet itself composed. Through thin breaks in the clouds, the star caught glimpses of the world beneath. Vast stretches of ocean reflecting its light, forests that shimmered faintly like emerald shadows, and mountains rising like dark silhouettes under the soft curve of twilight. Every glimpse made the star's glow tremble a little brighter, not with pride but with reverence. It understood now that the descent was not about falling. It was about connecting, about becoming one with what lay below. As it continued to move through the final layers of atmosphere, The color around it deepened into gold. The friction of entry no longer burned, it caressed. The sky above turned darker, while the horizon beneath glowed faintly with warmth. Every second of the descent felt slower, more sacred, as if time itself was stretching to honor the moment. The stars' once pure cosmic light now blended with the world's colors. Part of space, part of sky, part of something beautifully in between. The transition was seamless, like a note fading into a song, and the small star let itself drift deeper through air and light toward the quiet embrace of the world waiting below. The deeper the small star drifted, the more the quiet world around it began to change. What had once been endless silence started to tremble with soft tones, faint and distant at first, like whispers rising from beneath the layers of air. The sound was not one of noise, but of harmony, a resonance that vibrated through the sky itself. The star could feel it inside its own glowing heart, the slow hum of existence expressing itself through waves of invisible music. Each note seemed to come from the world below, sung by oceans, carried by the wind, and echoed by the peaks of mountains hidden under the clouds. The closer it came, the more alive everything began to feel. Color followed sound like breath after heartbeat. The sky, once pale and endless, began to bloom in shades the star had never known. Gold turned to rose, rose to amber, amber to soft violet. The horizon shimmered like a dream slowly taking form. The star's own light met these colors and scattered among them, painting the air with patterns that shimmered and flowed like ribbons in slow motion. It felt as though it was drifting through the brushstrokes of creation itself, where every shade and hue carried a story of time, matter, and memory. The star had seen many wonders across the galaxy, the glow of nebulae, the glint of frozen moons, yet nothing had ever felt this tender, this deeply alive. The sounds grew richer as it moved downward. They came from everywhere and nowhere. The deep, rolling sigh of the oceans below, the faint rush of wind moving through vast canopies of unseen trees, the delicate song of the air itself vibrating with warmth. The star realized that this planet did not hum as the stars did in their distant stillness. It sang. Every corner of it, the skies, the water, the soil, played a note in the great harmony of life. The star drifted through that melody, feeling it wrap around its light like a blanket of sound. For the first time in its long existence, it began to feel what it meant to listen, not just to hear. The clouds that surrounded it began to thin, revealing glimpses of the world below. Rivers of silver light wound their way through deep valleys. Oceans stretched endlessly, their waves glinting with reflections that danced like shards of starlight. The stars' light touched the surface of the sea, and for a moment, the entire ocean shimmered. 1,000 ripples glowing with borrowed fire. It was as though the planet had opened its eyes and was looking back at the star, greeting it not as an intruder, but as something familiar, something returning home. The closer it came to the surface, the stronger the harmony became. The sounds blended together. The hiss of waves, the sigh of wind, the hum of distant earth, and yet there was no chaos. It was all rhythm, all balance. The world did not shout its beauty. It whispered it in soft waves that could be felt more than heard. The stars' light pulsed gently, sensing with the rhythm around it, as if the universe itself was breathing through both sky and sea. Every pulse of light created a faint shimmer upon the water, a quiet echo of the song that carried it downward. As the star descended through the last veil of clouds, the air glowed brighter, as though welcoming its arrival. Rays of light split around it, bending into colors so delicate they seemed to tremble in place. The sky itself appeared to be alive. Particles of dust and moisture danced within the air, each one catching a fragment of light and spinning it into tiny, floating jewels. The star could feel its own light being mirrored back at it, reflected 1,000 times in every droplet, every shimmer, every gust. It realized that the beauty of this descent wasn't in its brightness, but in the way its glow merged with the world's. The harmony of two lights becoming one. The faint sounds of life grew clearer now. The soft murmur of waves, the rustling of leaves far below, even the faint rhythm of movement, heartbeats, footsteps, perhaps wings, all joined in a quiet orchestra of motion. The star didn't need to understand it to feel its meaning. It was the sound of continuity, of cycles that had existed long before its arrival and would continue long after. It was the song of existence, sung in 1,000 voices, wind, water, light, and silence blending into something eternal. The air shimmered as the star's light mixed with the moisture of the atmosphere, forming brief arcs of color, rainbows that flickered faintly around its path. Each band of light seemed to reach out, bending gently around the star like hands offering welcome. The colors were no longer just hues of light. They were expressions of life, of emotion, of the unspoken connection between sky and ground. The star could feel its own pulse slowing, its glow softening into something warmer, more intimate. It was no longer a traveler of the void. It had become part of a greater rhythm, part of a world that breathed color and sound together as one. In that descent through air, light, and melody, the star understood something it had never known in its long wanderings through the dark. That light was not meant only to shine. It was meant to listen, to reflect, to merge, to give life meaning. And as it continued its slow journey downward, through the blooming layers of sound and color, it felt itself dissolve gently into the embrace of a world that had been waiting, patient and timeless, for its arrival. As the shooting star continued its long, slow journey through the vast and silent darkness, a soft shimmer began to appear in the distance, like strands of silver mist weaving through the black tapestry of space. It was the glowing tail of a comet, stretching endlessly, luminous and graceful, as if the universe itself had painted a celestial brushstroke across eternity. The star had never seen anything quite like it before. The tail shimmered with particles of dust and ice, reflecting the distant sunlight in scattered rays that sparkled like diamonds drifting in a dream. Slowly the star approached it, feeling a strange pull, an invisible force that seemed both welcoming and mysterious. The comet's tail was not a solid thing, but it carried a quiet strength, a gentle rhythm, as though it whispered the songs of ancient wanderers who had crossed paths long before time was measured. As the star entered the glowing trail, the particles of ice began to dance around it, catching in its faint light, making it shimmer brighter for a moment. The star felt alive, almost reborn, as if it had found something that reminded it of what it used to be. A piece of fire once blazing with the energy of creation. The comet's presence was peaceful yet powerful, its tail trailing behind like the flowing robe of a cosmic traveler on a journey without end. The star sensed the slow heartbeat of the comet, the steady pulse of its orbit as it moved through the solar wind, enduring the endless cycles of freezing and thawing, fading and shining again. It was a life of rhythm and return, unlike the star's fleeting dash across the heavens. And in that contrast, the star found meaning. For a moment, the two celestial travelers seemed to speak to each other, not in words, but through light. The comet's particles swirled around the star in a graceful dance, leaving trails of glowing mist that glimmered like ancient runes in motion. The star's own light pulsed faintly in reply, sending tiny ripples through the shimmering dust. There was a calmness in their exchange, a quiet recognition that both were wanderers in an infinite expanse, each carrying its own purpose, its own fragment of the universe's story. The comet's light told of endurance, of cycles and patience. The star's light spoke of movement, of change, and the beauty of brief existence. Together, their meeting created a moment of balance between what endures and what passes, between stillness and flight. As the star drifted deeper through the glowing trail, tiny fragments of ice brushed against its surface, melting into wisps of vapor as they absorbed its faint warmth. The airless silence of space filled with invisible motion, like the rustle of leaves in a wind that no one could hear. The star felt surrounded by memories older than itself, memories of planets forming, of ancient suns burning out, of galaxies turning slowly in their majestic spirals. The comet had seen so much, yet it never hurried. It moved in graceful loops, always returning, always glowing softly against the darkness. To the comet, time was not a river to escape, but an ocean to flow with. To the shooting star, time was a flame that burned quickly, gloriously, before vanishing into the unseen. The star lingered in that mist for as long as it could, feeling the strange comfort of the comet's trail wrapping gently around it. It was as though the comet whispered to it, "Do not rush your fall. Even the swiftest journey can hold eternity if you look closely enough." And for the first time since it began its descent, the star felt no urgency. It moved more slowly now, almost floating, savoring the glowing dust that swirled around it like stardust snow. It realized that its own light, though small, was a part of this vast pattern, a thread in the tapestry that connected every traveler, every wanderer, every flicker of light in the endless dark. Beyond the comet's shimmering wake, the path ahead stretched open and dark once more. Yet something had changed in the heart of the star. The meeting had left an imprint, a calmness that carried forward like a secret melody humming quietly through its glow. The comet's tail faded slowly behind it, but its silver mist lingered in the star's wake, scattering faint light trails that would drift for ages after the star had passed. As the shooting star continued its long, graceful journey across the boundless sea of night, the silence of the cosmos deepened around it. The comet's trail had faded behind, and in that fading silence, something faint began to stir. It was not a sound, not a voice, but a gentle vibration, like the breath of eternity brushing across the edge of existence. The star felt it before it understood it. It was the whisper of forgotten stars, a soft and ancient murmur that drifted through the unseen corridors of space. These were not the living stars that burned brightly in the sky, but the remnants, the memories of those that once shone and had long since faded into dust. Their voices lingered still, woven into the cosmic fabric, carried on waves of light that had not yet been silenced by time. The whispering came in ripples, faint and melodic, like echoes of lullabies sung by suns that had cradled worlds now gone cold. Each whisper carried a story, some of creation, others of collapse. Some sang of light born from chaos, while others spoke of the quiet beauty in fading away. The shooting star drifted slowly through this invisible sea of memory, and for the first time, it felt the weight of belonging. It was not alone in its descent, nor in its fleetingness. The voices were soft, compassionate, eternal, and in their presence, the star felt understood. They did not judge its brief spark, nor mourn their own lost brilliance. Instead, they offered comfort, reminding it that every light, no matter how short its shine, leaves a mark upon the endless canvas of the universe. As the whispers grew stronger, the star began to see faint glows flickering in the distance. Ghostly traces of light, remnants of stars that once burned with unimaginable power. They shimmered like fragile embers suspended in time, neither alive nor gone, merely resting between states. The star moved among them, watching their faint pulses ebby and flow like the beating of distant hearts. Each glow seemed to recognize the newcomer, greeting it not as a stranger but as kin. For the universe, in its vastness, does not forget its own. Even light that has faded still hums softly in its eternal rhythm. The star drifted closer to one such remnant, a pale, silvery cloud that pulsed faintly with inner warmth. When it passed through, the shooting star felt the whisper clearer than before, like a thought forming directly within its being. The voice was ancient, tender, carrying the calm wisdom of something that had seen the rise and fall of countless ages. It spoke not in words, but in sensations, warmth, rhythm, memory. The star felt visions unfold, galaxies being born in spirals of gas and dust. Young stars igniting, planets spinning into existence, and light traveling through infinite corridors of space. Then, slowly, it saw endings. Stars collapsing inward, burning out, scattering their essence back into the dark from which they came. It was a cycle, not of loss, but of renewal. Every ending became a beginning. Every fading spark became the seed for another dawn. The whispering stars were not gone. They had simply transformed, giving their brilliance to the next wave of creation. The shooting star floated quietly, absorbing this silent truth. Its journey, though brief, was part of this same rhythm. It was not falling, it was returning like all things do to the place from which all light begins. The whispers grew softer now, fading like the tide after a gentle storm. But they left behind an echo in the star's heart, a melody that would stay with it for the rest of its glowing descent. It was a song of acceptance, of grace, of unity with everything that ever was and ever will be. As the star continued onward, the forgotten voices began to dissolve into the endless night once more. Their presence lingered only as a faint shimmer on the horizon, like a memory too soft to touch, but too beautiful to forget. The silence that followed was different now. It was not empty, but full of meaning. It carried the weight of what had been shared, the wisdom of ages resting softly upon the quiet traveler. And though the star moved farther away, it felt as if those whispers were still following it, hidden in the rhythm of its own light, humming softly like a promise whispered by eternity itself. The shooting star drifted farther into the vast expanse, its light glowing softly against the infinite dark. Around it, space was not silent anymore. It began to hum with a quiet rhythm, a deep vibration that came from everywhere and nowhere at once. This was the breath of the cosmos, the movement of invisible streams flowing endlessly through the void. The star could feel them brushing gently against its surface. Currents of energy, unseen but powerful, carrying the whispers of creation. It was the cosmic wind, the great river of charged particles that moved through galaxies, shaping everything it touched. The shooting star felt itself begin to move differently now, not merely falling, but swaying, gliding in harmony with these unseen tides. It was as though the universe itself had invited it into a dance, slow, graceful, and endless. The wind did not rush or roar. It whispered in long, flowing currents, weaving through constellations and around drifting clouds of dust. Each movement carried purpose. It was the artist of the stars, sculpting their paths, guiding their journeys without ever being seen. As the star surrendered to its flow, it began to understand the quiet intelligence within it, the way it curved around gravity's pull, the way it carried fragments of stardust like scattered notes of a forgotten symphony. The shooting star moved with it. its light rippling through the soft waves of space. There was no resistance now, no struggle against motion or fate. Every sway, every shift felt like part of a rhythm older than time itself. Through this dance, the star began to feel something it had never felt before. Weightlessness in its truest sense. Not just the absence of mass, but the absence of burden. It was as if all that had once defined it, the heat, the explosion, the spark of its birth, had been washed away, leaving behind only the essence of light and motion. The cosmic wind carried it, not as a traveler, but as a note in an infinite melody. And though it did not know where it was being taken, it trusted the rhythm. It felt the pulse of distant galaxies, the trembling of star clusters forming new suns, the quiet sigh of nebulae drifting in vast spirals of color. Everything moved together in harmony, bound by the same invisible breath. As it glided through the wind, the star began to notice tiny particles floating beside it. Dust from ancient stars, fragments of things that once burned bright and then scattered into the cosmos. They shimmered faintly, catching the starlight as they swirled in gentle arcs. Together they formed patterns that shifted and dissolved, as if painting stories in motion, stories of creation, of destruction, of endless becoming. The star moved among them, its light mingling with theirs, until there was no boundary between one glow and another. It felt the deep unity of existence, how everything, no matter how distant or small, was connected by this same cosmic flow. The wind changed as it moved through regions of deeper shadow. Its current thickened, and the space around the star darkened to an even deeper shade of blue-black. But the darkness did not feel empty. It pulsed with quiet energy, alive with particles so faint they could barely be seen. Yet their presence could be felt in every vibration. The star swayed slowly, allowing the current to guide it, learning its rhythm. Every subtle motion felt deliberate, as though the universe were teaching it something. Something about patience, about surrender, about the grace of moving without resistance. Occasionally, a spark would flash in the distance, like a faraway heartbeat echoing through the void. The cosmic wind carried the echo closer, and the star could almost hear it. A pulse of energy, the signature of another traveler drifting far away. It was a reminder that even in this great emptiness, it was never truly alone. Countless others moved through these same invisible streams, each guided by the same breath of creation. Some would ignite into new stars, others would fade into dust. But all were part of this same dance, this eternal movement of light through darkness. As the star continued to drift, it realized that the wind did not simply move through the universe. It was the universe in motion. It was the heartbeat of existence, the unseen rhythm that carried everything from the smallest grain of dust to the mightiest galaxy. To dance with it was to become one with all that is. The star let go completely now, its glow steady and soft, carried gently through the cosmic currents like a feather in a dream, floating endlessly through the breath of eternity. The shooting star drifted onward, carried gently by the cosmic wind, until a faint haze began to form in the distance, a cloud of color glowing softly against the backdrop of endless black. It shimmered in hues of violet and gold, weaving through the darkness like the breath of a sleeping universe. This was a nebula, vast and magnificent, born from the ashes of ancient stars. The shooting star felt its light brighten slightly as it approached, drawn to the glow as if called by something familiar. The airless space between them filled with silent energy, and soon the star found itself surrounded by veils of luminous mist. Within that mist, shapes appeared and faded, patterns of light that seemed to move with the rhythm of the star's own heartbeat. It was as though the nebula had awakened to greet it. The mist enveloped the star, wrapping it in waves of color that danced and rippled like silk in an unseen breeze. Every particle glowed faintly, alive with traces of long-departed stars. The shooting star could feel their presence all around. Echoes of creation and destruction intertwined in a single, endless cycle. Within those colors it saw fragments of memory, births of suns, collapses of giants, dust reuniting to form new worlds. The nebula was a mirror, reflecting not the star's surface, but its essence. It showed what had been hidden, the fear of fading, the desire to shine, the quiet acceptance of its journey's end. For a moment, the star's light pulsed with emotion, though space carried no sound to express it. The reflections deepened as the nebula's glow grew stronger. The star saw itself scattered among the mist, 1,000 versions of its light reflected back from floating particles, each one different, each one beautiful in its own way. It realized that even in its smallness, it could fill the void with brightness. Every flicker of its glow became a part of something larger, blending with the colors to create patterns that shimmered like painted dreams. The nebula seemed to respond, pulsing gently in rhythm, its colors flowing in and out of each other as though in conversation. The star drifted deeper, moving through clouds of emerald gas that swirled around its path like ribbons of thought. Inside the heart of the nebula, time seemed to dissolve. There was no sense of motion or direction, only color, light, and memory. The shooting star felt as though it had entered a living mind, the mind of the cosmos itself, remembering everything that had ever been. It sensed the quiet sorrow of dying stars, the tender birth of new ones, and the endless patience with which the universe renews itself. The nebula's colors shifted again, turning deep blue, then soft gold, as if revealing emotions too vast to name. And in that glow, the star understood that every end was only a reflection of another beginning. The nebula was not a graveyard. It was a nursery, a cradle for the future light that would one day shine across the galaxies. The shooting star floated in stillness, its tiny light merging with the nebula's grand illumination. For the first time, it could see the beauty of its own journey reflected back at it. It realized that even though it was just a spark, its existence had meaning. It had come from the same dust that built these clouds, from the same fire that lit distant suns. The nebula seemed to hum softly around it, a wordless lullaby that spoke of connection, of belonging, of the eternal cycle of light returning to light. The colors rippled slowly, and in those ripples, the star saw its own future, not as a fading streak in the night, but as part of the luminous mist that would someday give birth to new stars. As it drifted through the final layers of the glowing cloud, the star felt lighter, as if it had shed something it no longer needed. The reflection had shown it the truth it had been seeking, the beauty in impermanence, the peace in transformation. Around it, the nebula continued to pulse with soft, infinite color, breathing silently, as it had for millions of years. The shooting star's light shimmered once more, blending into the mist, carried forward by the nebula's quiet rhythm. As the reflection of its journey lingered gently within the folds of the cosmic veil, beyond the radiant glow of the nebula, the universe grew darker once again. The colors faded slowly behind the shooting star, dissolving into the vast and endless black. Ahead lay a region of deep silence, a place where even light seemed hesitant to wander. It was the realm of silent shadows, a vast, mysterious stretch of space where stars were scarce and the darkness felt almost alive. The shooting star slowed as it entered, its glow dimming slightly, as though the shadows themselves were absorbing its light. Yet there was no fear in this darkness, only a stillness so profound it felt sacred. It was the breath between two notes of the universe's eternal song. Here, the airless expanse felt thicker, not with substance, but with meaning. The star could sense the presence of things unseen. Black holes sleeping quietly, fragments of dead worlds drifting aimlessly, remnants of cosmic storms that had long since passed. The silence here was not emptiness. It was the pause of existence itself, the resting place of energy before it became light again. As the star drifted deeper, its small glow illuminated fragments of rock and frozen dust floating like forgotten memories. They did not move fast, nor did they shine. They simply existed, suspended in a calm that felt endless. The star moved gently through this darkness, its light reflecting faintly off the passing debris, like whispers of lives that once were. Occasionally, it would catch sight of a faint glimmer, perhaps the echo of a distant star whose light had traveled across eternity only to fade upon arrival. Those faint sparkles flickered like ancient fireflies in a sea of shadow. The shooting star felt both tiny and eternal, moving through a void that seemed to know everything yet spoke nothing. The shadows carried an intelligence of their own, not the kind that thinks, but the kind that remembers. Every particle of dust here had once been part of something greater. A planet, a comet, a sun, and now in their stillness they formed the quiet bones of the universe. The deeper the star went, the more it began to sense the subtle rhythm hidden in the darkness. It was faint, almost imperceptible, but it was there, the heartbeat of the cosmos. It pulsed slowly, each beat spanning centuries, vibrating through the emptiness like the echo of creation itself. The shooting star felt that pulse ripple through its being, synchronizing its own light with it. For a moment, it was as though the star and the darkness were breathing together, sharing the same ancient rhythm. There was no division between light and shadow here. They coexisted, defining each other, shaping each other. As the star drifted through this realm, it began to notice how the shadows moved, not in chaos, but in patterns too vast for a single mind to grasp. Wisps of darkness flowed like tides, bending around invisible forces, folding into themselves, then stretching outward again. It was beautiful in its own quiet way, like ink slowly spreading in water. The star realized that these shadows were not voids, but transitions, bridges between what once was and what would someday be. The light it carried was not meant to conquer them, but to move through them, to understand them. In one corner of the dark expanse, the star saw a distant, faint spiral, a galaxy seen from afar, turning silently like a clock with no hands. Its arms glowed faintly with young stars, while its edges dissolved into shadow. The sight stirred something deep within the shooting star, a quiet recognition of its place in that infinite design. Everything it had passed through, the winds, the whispers, the nebula, and now this darkness, was part of a larger harmony. The shadows were not an end, but a necessary silence that made all brightness meaningful. The star continued on, letting the darkness cradle it like a deep, eternal ocean. It no longer feared the fading of its light, for it understood that even the shadows held a kind of illumination, one that could not be seen, only felt. Around it, the silence grew deeper, richer, almost comforting. The shadows whispered without words, not of endings, but of balance. The universe, the star realized, was built upon both, the light that shines and the silence that holds it. The two were not opposites but reflections of one another, bound forever in a slow, eternal dance that shaped everything the cosmos would ever be. As the shooting star continued its slow passage through the realm of shadows, a subtle change began to take place within its core. Its light, once steady and sharp, began to soften, as though growing weary from the long journey across the universe. But this fading was not sorrowful. It carried a quiet grace, a sense of completion that only comes when something has truly lived its purpose. The darkness around it seemed to notice, responding not with emptiness, but with reverence, as though the cosmos itself bowed gently to witness the end of a luminous traveler. The star could feel its own warmth ebbing, its glow thinning into a delicate shimmer that trailed faintly behind like threads of silk unraveling in space. Yet in that dimming light, something beautiful began to awaken memory. The shooting star saw flashes of its birth, images rising and fading like reflections upon a still lake. It remembered the first spark that had ignited its core, the fierce explosion that had hurled it into motion. It remembered drifting through the nebula's colors, gliding with the cosmic wind, listening to the whispers of ancient stars. Every encounter, every silence, every shimmer of light had left an imprint upon it. These were not just memories. They were fragments of the universe itself, stored within the glow of its being. The star realized that even as its brightness waned, these memories would remain, carried forward in the particles it would leave behind. Each grain of dust, Each trace of energy would hold the story of its journey, waiting to be woven into new forms of light. As it floated onward, the space around it began to shift. The shadows receded slightly, revealing distant points of light far beyond. Stars it would never reach, galaxies whose light had taken millions of years to arrive. Their faint glow mingled with its own, creating a tapestry of soft luminescence that stretched endlessly across the void. The dying star saw itself reflected in them, not as something small or brief, but as part of an unbroken lineage of brilliance. It understood now that no light ever truly disappears. It only changes form, merging into the greater rhythm of existence. The same energy that had once given it life would one day give birth to something new. In that realization, the star found peace, a peace that radiated through every particle of its fading self. The universe around it grew quieter still. The cosmic winds had softened into a gentle drift, and even the background hum of creation seemed to slow. The star's light pulsed faintly, like the final notes of a melody drawing to its close. Yet, with each pulse, it released something, a memory, a whisper, a fragment of its journey. These fragments shimmered outward, scattering into the darkness like seeds in the soil of space. Each one carried a piece of its experience, the warmth of the nebula's colors, the stillness of the shadows, the wisdom of the forgotten stars. They floated away softly, glowing faintly as they spread across the endless sky. The star knew they would travel far, perhaps to places where new worlds would one day form, perhaps to the hearts of new suns that had not yet been born. The fading continued slowly, gently, as though the universe refused to let go too quickly. The star could feel its energy unraveling. But it was not a loss. It was a release. Every flicker of its light became a gift, a contribution to the cosmic memory. It thought of all the light it had seen during its long journey, and realized that every star it had passed had done the same, each one giving a part of itself to the whole. The universe was not a cold emptiness, but a living memory made of infinite exchanges of light. Around the star, the space began to glow faintly, illuminated not by its strength, but by the echoes of what it had shared. The dying light became a whisper in the grand symphony of the cosmos, blending perfectly with the hum of creation. Its brightness was now soft as breath, but it was everywhere, reflected in dust, carried by the wind, mirrored in distant glows. The star understood then that it would never truly vanish. It would continue in forms unseen, in colors unimagined, in places beyond time. Its memory had become the universe's memory, woven quietly into the eternal fabric of light and darkness, forever drifting through the silence it once called home. After drifting through the vast silence where its light began to fade, the shooting star found itself pulled gently by a new presence, a distant planet, silent and blue beneath layers of mist and cloud. Gravity, soft but irresistible, began to draw it in, guiding its slow descent through the velvet dark. The star could feel the subtle shift in space around it, a faint tug that carried with it a promise of transformation. The planet's pull was not a force of destruction, but an invitation, a beckoning toward a final act of brilliance. The airless void began to shimmer faintly as the star moved closer, and the curve of the planet's horizon appeared like a shadowed crescent, resting beneath an ocean of twilight. It had traveled so far, through so many realms of silence and light, and now the journey was bringing it home, not to where it began, but to where it was meant to end. The star's light, though dimmed, began to stir once more as it entered the planet's upper skies. A faint glow surrounded it, thin at first, then growing stronger as the atmosphere began to embrace it. The resistance of air, unseen for eons of travel, now greeted it like a long-forgotten warmth. The friction awakened sparks along its edges, tiny flames of rebirth licking at its fading surface. The star began to shine again, not out of will, but from the natural poetry of physics, the same energy that once sent it across the universe, now flaring for the last time. The air glowed around it in soft oranges and silvers, and for the briefest moment, it looked as though the heavens themselves were welcoming it home. Below, the world turned slowly in its endless rotation. Vast oceans reflected the faint glimmer of starlight, while continents slept beneath blankets of night. The shooting star's descent painted the sky with a streak of gold so pure it seemed to pierce the dreams of the world below, for the watchers who might be awake. Perhaps a child gazing through a window, or a traveler wandering under the night sky. It appeared as a fleeting miracle, a wish made visible, a secret carried on light. But for the star, it was something deeper, something almost sacred. It was the culmination of its long and silent journey, the transformation of all that it had been into something new, something that would exist only for a heartbeat in time, but would be remembered forever in the eyes that saw it. As it continued to descend, the air grew denser, and the glow around it became more intense. The soft orange deepened into gold, then into white fire, until it blazed brighter than it ever had before. The friction tore away layers of dust and rock, releasing heat and light in equal measure. Yet in that fiery unraveling, the star felt no pain. Instead, it felt expansion, release, fulfillment. Every fragment that broke away carried the memory of its journey. The whisper of the nebula, the silence of the shadows, the rhythm of the cosmic wind. Each spark became a piece of its story, flung into the night as if the universe itself were scattering the pages of a celestial diary. As it neared the horizon, the air glowed brighter still, turning the night sky into a living painting of motion and color. Waves of light rippled outward, reflecting off the planet's clouds, shimmering across oceans and disappearing into the distance. For a brief and perfect moment, the star was everything it had ever been. Light, dust, memory, and motion, all gathered into one final symphony of brilliance. The wind howled around it, but to the star, it was not noise, it was music. The same melody it had heard in the depths of the cosmos, now played in crescendo as it met the embrace of a world. The ground far below was invisible now, lost beneath a sea of light. The stars' glow illuminated the upper layers of the atmosphere, turning night into day for a fleeting instant. Then, slowly, its brightness began to thin once more, as the final fragments of its body scattered into the air. But even as its form dissolved, the light continued to move forward, stretching across the sky like a golden scar of beauty. To those who watched from below, it would vanish in seconds, leaving only a faint trail that faded gently into darkness. Yet in that short, glowing descent, the star had achieved something eternal. It had turned its final fall into light, its ending into illumination, and its silence into wonder that would echo quietly in the hearts of those who wished upon it. After drifting through the vast silence, where its light began to fade, the shooting star found itself pulled gently by a new presence. A distant planet, silent and blue beneath layers of mist and cloud. Gravity, soft but irresistible, began to draw it in, guiding its slow descent through the velvet dark. The star could feel the subtle shift in space around it, a faint tug that carried with it a promise of transformation. The planet's pull was not a force of destruction, but an invitation, a beckoning toward a final act of brilliance. The airless void began to shimmer faintly as the star moved closer, and the curve of the planet's horizon appeared like a shadowed crescent, resting beneath an ocean of twilight. It had traveled so far, through so many realms of silence and light, and now the journey was bringing it home. Not to where it began, but to where it was meant to end. The star's light, though dimmed, began to stir once more as it entered the planet's upper skies. A faint glow surrounded it, thin at first, then growing stronger as the atmosphere began to embrace it. The resistance of air, unseen for aeons of travel, now greeted it like a long forgotten warmth. The friction awakened sparks along its edges, tiny flames of rebirth licking at its fading surface. The star began to shine again, not out of will, but from the natural poetry of physics. The same energy that once sent it across the universe, now flaring for the last time. The air glowed around it in soft oranges and silvers, and for the briefest moment, it looked as though the heavens themselves were welcoming it home. Below, the world turned slowly in its endless rotation. Vast oceans reflected the faint glimmer of starlight, while continents slept beneath blankets of night. The shooting star's descent painted the sky with a streak of gold so pure it seemed to pierce the dreams of the world below. For the watchers who might be awake, perhaps a child gazing through a window, or a traveler wandering under the night sky, it appeared as a fleeting miracle, a wish made visible, a secret carried on light. But for the star, it was something deeper, something almost sacred. It was the culmination of its long and silent journey, the transformation of all that it had been into something new, something that would exist only for a heartbeat in time, but would be remembered forever in the eyes that saw it. As it continued to descend, the air grew denser, and the glow around it became more intense. The soft orange deepened into gold, then into white fire, until it blazed brighter than it ever had before. The friction tore away layers of dust and rock, releasing heat and light in equal measure. Yet in that fiery unraveling, the star felt no pain. Instead, it felt expansion, release, fulfillment. Every fragment that broke away carried the memory of its journey, the whisper of the nebula, the silence of the shadows, the rhythm of the cosmic wind. Each spark became a piece of its story, flung into the night as if the universe itself were scattering the pages of a celestial diary. As it neared the horizon, the air glowed brighter still, turning the night sky into a living painting of motion and color. Waves of light rippled outward, reflecting off the planet's clouds, shimmering across oceans, and disappearing into the distance. For a brief and perfect moment, the star was everything it had ever been: light, dust, memory, and motion, all gathered into one final symphony of brilliance. The wind howled around it, but to the star, it was not noise, it was music, the same melody it had heard in the depths of the cosmos, now played in crescendo as it met the embrace of a world. The ground far below was invisible now, lost beneath a sea of light. The star's glow illuminated the upper layers of the atmosphere, turning night into day for a fleeting instant. Then, slowly, its brightness began to thin once more as the final fragments of its body scattered into the air. But even as its form dissolved, the light continued to move forward, stretching across the sky like a golden scar of beauty. To those who watched from below, it would vanish in seconds, leaving only a faint trail that faded gently into darkness. Yet in that short, glowing descent, the star had achieved something eternal. It had turned its final fall into light, its ending into illumination, and its silence into wonder that would echo quietly in the hearts of those who wished upon it. When the brilliance faded and the streak of gold dissolved into the night, what remained was silence, deep, unbroken, and soft as breath. The world turned quietly beneath the stars, unaware that a cosmic traveler had just ended its long odyssey upon its sky. The light that had once crossed endless galaxies was now scattered dust, drifting gently through the upper air, too faint for the eye, but still alive in the rhythm of the universe. The whisper after the light was not emptiness. It was memory, the faint echo of a journey that would never be repeated in the same way again. Every atom that once belonged to that wandering star had found a new home, becoming part of the air, part of the sea, part of the unseen harmony that binds all things together. The whisper began not in sound, but in feeling, a subtle tremor in the atmosphere, a quiet resonance carried through the stillness of space. It was as if the universe itself took a long, slow breath after witnessing the star's final descent. The energy it released did not vanish. It spread outward, unseen waves rippling through the fabric of reality. Those ripples brushed the clouds, kissed the oceans, and continued onward, far beyond the horizon. The energy of the stars passing became part of the infinite dance of motion that never stops, the breath of the cosmos, gentle but eternal. In the night that followed, the air carried a new kind of calm. The light of distant constellations seemed softer, as though they had dimmed in respect. In the quiet fields and mountain valleys, where the streak had been seen, the earth seemed to listen. The animals stirred briefly, sensing the change, before returning to stillness. Somewhere, perhaps a poet or a dreamer lifted their eyes to the heavens and felt the faint trace of awe that always follows a miracle too brief to name. That feeling, neither sorrow nor joy but something between, was the whisper the star left behind, a silent message written in the heart instead of the sky. In the realm beyond human sight, the remnants of the star continued their gentle fall. Dust particles, now glowing faintly from their journey through heat and friction, drifted down like invisible snow. They joined the winds, merged with clouds, and would one day fall as rain or snow upon the same world that had watched their brilliance. Each grain carried the essence of the cosmos, a record of the star's long voyage through ancient light and empty distance. In time, they would nourish soil, feed rivers, perhaps even enter the veins of living things. In this quiet cycle, death was not an ending but a transformation, the whisper of the universe continuing in forms too small to see yet too vast to comprehend. Far above, the stars that had once been companions to the fallen traveler continued to shine. They blinked faintly through the thin atmosphere, unaware of what had passed, yet their collective light seemed to hum a low and distant song. It was the same melody that threads through the galaxies, the same silent rhythm that connects every atom and star. The whisper that followed the light was part of that song, a harmony that lingered in the space between existence and memory. The universe does not speak in words. It speaks in echoes, in vibrations, in the invisible persistence of what once was. And in that moment, the cosmos spoke softly through the faint afterglow that shimmered at the edge of the horizon. As the night deepened, the whisper settled into the air like a lingering breath. The place where the star had burned bright was now calm again, filled with the hush of completion. But even though the light was gone, its impression remained, woven into the minds of those who had seen it, and into the unseen energies that filled the world. Every falling star leaves behind this echo, a trace of something greater than itself, a subtle reminder that endings are never truly silent. Somewhere in the quiet between heartbeats, that whisper continued, carrying the story of a journey from light to dust, from motion to rest, from brilliance to the peace that follows. Long after the streak of the shooting star had vanished from the sky, the universe continued its slow, silent turning. The dust of the fallen traveler, scattered across the upper reaches of the atmosphere, began to drift and settle, Some of it mingled with the earth's breath, some sank into oceans, and some remained aloft, carried by invisible winds that circled the planet. Yet in time, every fragment, every shining atom, would find its way home to the stars. For nothing in this vast cosmos is ever truly lost. Everything that falls eventually rises again in another form. The journey of the shooting star did not end with its fading light. It only transformed, continuing on in a cycle as timeless as existence itself. The eternal return began quietly, without fire or spectacle, deep within the earth, where time moves differently and silence has weight. The remnants of ancient stars rested in stone, in soil, in the hidden layers of the world. There, the cosmic dust slowly joined with minerals, forming the seeds of mountains. The shimmer in crystals, the unseen trace in every living cell. In this way, the fallen star became part of life itself, a quiet witness to the endless rhythm of creation and dissolution. Over millions of years, the atoms that once burned across the sky could become part of a leaf, a wave, or even the spark within another star. In the far future, when the earth itself will have changed, when continents will have shifted and oceans will have sung their long songs into silence, those same particles may lift once more into space, perhaps through volcanic fire, perhaps through the wind that escapes the world's grasp. The star's essence will find its path back into the cosmos, and somewhere in the far reaches of the Milky Way, new stars will form. Giant glowing furnaces that gather dust and gas, igniting with the same ancient fire that has burned since time began. In those new stars, the particles of the once fallen traveler will shine again, continuing the infinite circle of birth and rebirth, light and silence. The eternal return is not only a journey of matter, but also of memory. Though stars do not think, and dust does not dream, the universe remembers through repetition, through the endless echo of creation, repeating itself in new forms. The shooting star's brilliance, though it lasted but a moment, became part of this cosmic memory. Every future star that is born carries within it the light of all those that came before. Every spark in the dark sky is a retelling of that same story. The fall, the transformation, and the return. In this way, the universe preserves every moment of beauty, every fleeting flash of wonder within its vast, silent continuum. Somewhere, far beyond what the eye can see, a nebula glows softly in the dark, its clouds swirling with the faint light of countless forgotten stars. Among that mist drifts the memory of the one that once crossed the earth's sky. now merging with others, waiting to be reborn. Slowly, under gravity's tender pull, the dust gathers, compresses, and ignites once more. The light that emerges is not new. It is ancient light, reborn in a new form, shining through endless ages to remind the cosmos that nothing truly ends. The same atoms that once fell as a meteor now blaze again in the heart of a star, and one day, perhaps, another distant world will look up and see it streak across their own night sky, whispering the same quiet awe. And so the journey continues, slow, patient, and eternal. The star that once fell has not disappeared. It has simply changed its name, its shape, its place in the great order of things. Its essence moves through time and form, bound to the pulse of creation that hums beneath every silence and every spark. The shooting star was never just a moment of light. It was a messenger of the eternal, carrying within its brief radiance the reminder that everything that leaves must one day return. From dust to light, from sky to soil, from silence to song, the cycle of the stars never ceases, and the journey, though unseen, never truly ends.